Thank you all for being such a wonderful audience and enjoying the music along with us today. So, Veer Gopalan sir and Badri requested me to just give you a little brief about the songs that were presented today, at the end of which you can also ask me a few questions, and if I do know the answer, I will try to answer them. Please excuse Kamala Kiran, he needs to catch a flight now, so he is going to leave. So today's concert, I began with a piece called Vidulakum Rokkeda in Raga Maya Malavagale. This is a special song, at least for all of us who are in the music field. What this song is basically trying to say is that we pay our respects to all the musical greats, to all the people who have been in the music field, who've contributed from ancient times. We pay our respects to them. So the song goes, Kamala, Gauri, Vagishwari, Vidhi, Garuda Dhwaja, Shiva, Narada, the Lakshmi, Saraswati, Durga, and Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, then Amaresha, Bharata, Kashyapa, Chandi, Sharangadeva, all the authors who wrote on music, and the list goes on through the song. So this is a very, very special song, at least for me, and I love to sing it at the beginning of every concert in homage to all the people who have contributed so much to bringing this art form to where it is today. So that was Vidulakum Rokkeda. It is in the raga Maya Malavagale, and Maya Malavagale is the 15th Melakarta. Melakarta, for those who might not know, Melakartas are major scales in Carnatic music. There are 72 of them, of which this particular ragam is the 15th raga, and it has... Hello? Okay, so Maya Malavagale is the beginning raga for Carnatic music. That is, anybody who starts lessons in Carnatic music starts them in Maya Malavagale. It has a lot of history behind it, and as many of you might know, Carnatic music developed alongside an instrument called the veena. It's something like it's the Indian lute, they say. So Maya Malavagale raga is made as such that every couple of notes fall on adjacent frets of the veena. So they decided that this is a very good raga to start off initial lessons, because the movement of the hands becomes easy if two notes are on adjacent frets. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That way they selected Maya Malavagale as that was one of the reasons they selected Maya Malavagale to be the initial raga in Carnatic music pedagogy. And from there we start, and of course we learn much more complexity in it as we go on. But this is the raga in which Vidulakum Rokkeda was set. It was a composition of Tyagaraja Swami. And the second piece was Idadu Padam Tooki Adum. This is a composition in Raga Kamas. Kamas is a very lilting, beautiful ragam. Many of the Sringara or love songs are tuned to Kamas raga. Balu sir is an expert on many of those. So, when you say love songs, it sounds very strange. When you say Sringara Rasa Pradhana Kirtanas, it sounds a lot more friendly to our ears, I think. Anyway, so Idadu Padam Tooki was in Kamas raga. Kamas is an interesting form. It is It's got all the notes of the major scale except for a flat knee. And this particular version of Khamas has two nishadas, that it has the flat variety as well as the sharp variety. So, one second. Samagama nidani padani sa sa nidapa magari sa. This is how the scale moves, but there is one additional knee. Tada na 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 magama nidani sa. There are two knees in this version of Khamas. There are some songs where some composers have chosen to retain just one and some have two. This song, which is a composition of Papanasam Shivan, has both the knees. It's a beautiful composition describing the dance of Lord Shiva. And as songs on dance would go, there is a lot of focus and stress on rhythm. So this song had an interesting rhythmical setup. The first two sections of the song were in one gati, Chaturashra gati, that had four notes in a beat. And the third section of the song, the rhythm changed into a 3-note per beat rhythm. And then it comes back. So that was a very interesting setup for this song. That was Idadu Padam Tuki in Khamas Raga Adi Tala. Subsequently, I had performed Sogasuga Mridanga Talamu. This is a composition in Raga Sri Ranjani. You might have all heard many songs in Sri Ranjani like Broche Varevare, Bhuvini Dasudane, many of them, Gajavadana. There are several songs. The nice thing about Sri Ranjani Raga is it's one without pa. We have few ragas in Carnatic music which omit the 5th note pa. All of them have like a different flavor. Suddenly the whole tone of the sound changes because of the omission of just this 1/5 note pa. One of the such ragams is Sri Ranjani. Sari ga madani sa sa ni da magari sa. So it takes all the other notes of Karahara Priya Mela, which is the 22nd major scale, and that was Sri Ranjani Ragam, and Sogasuga Mridanga Talamu. Again, that was a composition of Tyagaraja Swami. So in the song, Tyagaraja's wondering to himself, who would be able to please Lord Rama more? One who can sing beautifully with mridanga to add to the rhythm and well in beat. And of course, he describes many more, but he describes the greatness of music and says one who can perform and sing this music in the pristine and perfect way can please Lord Rama. That's what in general he is trying to say in the song.
Mali was performing it appropriately.
No doubt. Okay, the next composition was Atuka Radhani. This is a ragam called Manoranjani. Manoranjani is a rare ragam. There are very few compositions in this. If I am correct, there are 2. One of them is this song. The raga goes Sari ma pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. That's how this goes. It is a janya of the fifth mela, and it omits just one Gandhara in the ascent, and remaining is Sampurna. So this was a song, this is also a Vivadi Raga. For people who might not know what Vivadi is, Vivadis are sets of notes which are very close by in frequency. They are next to each other as far as the note system goes. And there are a few sets of these swaras which are called Vivadi. Ma, ga, re, ga, re. The ga and the re, the closeness allows them to be called Vivadi. And this is also one of these ragas, Atukaradani. After this, I had performed Kalyani. Kalyani is one of the most important big ragas in Carnatic music. Very lilting to the ear. It is the 65th major ragam in the Carnatic music system of 72. And this composition was one of Maharaja Swati Tirunal. Swati Tirunal was king of the princely state of Travancore, which is today's Kerala in southern India. Being a king, he also composed several songs in Sanskrit, Telugu, Kannada, Sanskrit, Telugu, Malayalam, and some in Hindi and Vraj Bhasha too. He also composed songs in Hindustani ragas. This is a very well-known composition, set to tune and popularized by Shemmangudi Srinivasa Iyer, who is my grand guru, that is my guru's guru. That was Pankaja Lochana. And for this composition, you heard a beautiful improvisational section by Mali sir. He played many rhythmical patterns in what is called the Tani Avartanam. Carnatic music concerts have the section called Tani Avartanam, where the percussionist is allowed to express his creativity and, show what his talent and skills are on the instrument. So there are many different sections, and after a point of which we have a cue, and from there we come back to the song and start playing as a group again. You must have heard Mali sir's Tani Avartanam. He played beautifully in different Chaturashra and Tishra and things like that. So that was the Tani Avartanam. After that, I sang a short Ragam Tanam Pallavi. Ragam Tanam Pallavi is probably the one item in a concert that is maximum improvisational in nature. There is just one line which is set to tune, and the rest of it is all improvised. So there is one section, first the Alapana, which is also called Ragam, where I sang like the outline of the raga, and then there is something called Tanam. Tanam is a special kind of presentation of the same raga where rhythm is in the forefront. So you make rhythmical patterns out of short staccatos, and you try to bring out the same, express the same raga that you sang in the Alapana, but in a different form, right? Because in the Alapana there are long stretches and long dirgha swaras, or what you call elongated notes. But in the Tanam, everything is staccato. You go nam ta ta nam ta. So everything is like staccato and like single notes. So you try to bring out the same flavor of the raga in a completely different format. So that is what Tanam is all about. And the third section was the Pallavi itself. Pallavi was one line taken up, Kaveri Tatashthitam Bhajare Kari Kalabha Mukam. That was the line. And I did different kinds of improvisations on it. One is called the Niraval. Niraval is where you improvise using the lyrics of the line and in the particular talam, in the framework that it has been set in. After the Niraval, there was one section called Trikala. So in the Trikalam, this happens in every Pallavi. Like any Ragam Tanam Pallavi that you listen to in any concert, this format is similar. So the second section would be the Trikalam, where you sing the same Pallavi in a slow speed, then the medium speed, then something called a Tishram, where it is the rhythm is changed, and then in the fast speed. So that's called the Trikalam. After which I sang Kalpana Swara, which is improvisation with just the notes, Sarima Padasa, Sanidapa Magarisa. And with the Swaram, I also presented a Ragamalika Kalpana Swara, which is different Kalpana Swaras. In every Swaram, I changed the Ragam. The ragas that I presented today was Bihag, then Varamu, Varali, and Sama. These were the ragas, and I changed raga for every Swaram, and after which there was a fast Swaram, and then there was a completion. So that was the Ragam Tanam Pallavi. Ragam Tanam Pallavi, nice thing about it is the framework has a couple of things that you could note. The line is generally of one avarta or one cycle of the tala or the rhythm structure, and every time there is a gap in the center that is called the arudhi. Arudhi, or there'll always be a gap for any Pallavi that you would listen to. For example, I'll sing this for you. Takka Kaveri Tata Stitam Bhajare. It'll always fall on the beat, and there will always be that gap, which is called the arudhi. This is one of the key characteristic things about a Pallavi that you would come across in every single Pallavi that you listen to in concerts. So this is the Ragam Tanam Pallavi. And post the Ragam Tanam Pallavi, I rendered one Kirtana of Annamacharya, Muddugare Yashoda. Annamacharya is one of the most prolific poets of South India. He lived in Andhra Pradesh and composed mostly in Telugu and Sanskrit. And this is a beautiful song on little Krishna, and Annamacharya is comparing every one of his attributes to a precious gem. So there'll be Manikyam, Vaiduryam, Padmaragam, and several gems. So he imagines little qualities of little Krishna, and then he compares it to one particular gem. Of course, there's lots to be said about it, but in brief, this is Annamacharya's composition in Raga Chenjuruti. So that was the sequence of items for today's concert. If anybody might have any questions which I could answer, I would be happy to.
In the Tanam you said,
Mm-hmm.
the forefront is the rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
Why the percussionist doesn't play on it?
That's a very interesting question. So there are some sampradayas or some traditions where the mridangist does accompany tanam, but what happens is there is no set rhythm, in the sense I can change the rhythm as I please. So if there was a talam, which is a set framework, he would know when it starts, when it ends, and he can make calculations and anticipate my moves accordingly. But this is completely my own imagination. I shouldn't say my own, I guess. It's completely the main artist's, left to the main artist's imagination. So they can change at any point, move at any point to a different rhythm, go up and down, and that would be impeding the mridangist's flow. So in general, most people do not sing tanam along with percussion, but there are some traditions, especially in Kerala, where the tanams are generally accompanied by the mridangam. Yeah.
The gentleman who introduced you
Uh-huh.
mentioned that you incorporated some elements of Hindustani
Uh-huh.
tradition in your singing, and I wondered if you could speak about that.
Okay. So as far as my music is concerned, I have worked on some aspects of voice culture from the Hindustani standpoint. Basically, I trained in holding notes and throwing the voice. These are some techniques that in South Indian music it's not very explicitly taught to students, but I was able to kind of imbibe these things from my Hindustani teacher, and well, I've been working on it for a while. As far as the content of the music is concerned, I am very, very convinced and particular that one should not infiltrate the other. If you sing Carnatic music, it should sound like Carnatic. If you sing Hindustani, it should sound like Hindustani. Well, today what is happening is, yes, we are influenced to a large extent by what we hear and what is around us. So there is some seepage happening, but my own preference would be to keep each style distinct and its flavor distinct. Where I do like to imbibe things is in some technical aspects like the voice culture, which I can use to develop my voice and then sing my own music. So that is how I have been able to look at Hindustani music. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Some demonstration on this, please.
My whole concert, I thought, was a demonstration of that. If you could just be more specific, I can maybe try. No. So there were some. I was having some difficulties with my voice in regarding range, regarding strength, regarding steadiness, regarding flexibility. So there were some difficulties, especially in the higher reaches. I was having some difficulty. So I'll try and give you a demo on how pre and post was. I don't know how successful I might be, but here goes. So suppose I'm singing Saveri Raga. Just hold on a second. This is how I used to sing earlier. This throw I learned from the Hindustani style. I was not earlier able to do this with this amount of ease or this amount of precision. I think that I definitely developed from there. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. So Carnatic music has developed a pedagogical system, like I said to you earlier, based on the Veena. So the training methodology is suited for the Veena much more. We do have our exercises and such, but for some reason in tradition it was always believed that the more you sing, you will be okay. But I do find that that's really not the case. I mean, if you keep singing in the wrong way, you might end up losing your voice. Worst case scenario, you may even lose it. So this was definitely the belief 2-3 generations ago that just keep singing, you'll be okay. I don't know the exact reason why, but I have heard people, even MS Amma, I have heard her say, practice the Sarali Varse, Janta Varse every day. Practice your songs, you will be all right. She has told me this. And MS Amma is our yardstick for a good voice in Carnatic music, right? So this was the belief a few generations ago. My guess would be that it could do with the fact that the pedagogy was developed around the Veena and not around the voice. Every instrument has a different kind of training that is required, and voice is our instrument, and we need to train it in a different way. I cannot train the voice the way a Veena trains its Veena artist trains their fingers, right? So there needs to be a difference, but unfortunately somewhere I think that thing has been missed out. But now everybody is picking up on this, and artists are more aware and more focused on working on their voice independently.
Just to follow up, are people developing versions of Sarali Varsai or advanced?
Yeah, everybody has developed their own versions of Sarali Varsai.
What I mean is to help with voice culture.
So, like I'm saying, Sarali Varsai helps 1 or 2 or 3 aspects of the voice. Let us say there are about 15 of them. There are some areas of the voice that have not been particularly pointed out and say this is why you're doing. I'll give you a small example. So in sa re ga ma pa da ni sa da ni sa re sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. When we're taught this is an exercise we're taught, standard exercise. When we're taught this, we're not taught to focus saying when you hold the sa, hold it in this particular way. So, though the components of voice culture may be inbuilt in the exercises themselves, the lack of pointing it out, lack of awareness that this is why we are doing X, Y, Z, somewhere that has gotten lost, I feel. So, we need to kind of revisit things. We need to rework what we need to do with our voices. We need to also think about today's circumstances with regard to things like singing with the microphone. 2-3 generations back, people were not singing with a microphone, so the kind of voice they needed was completely different. If a Chembai or his seniors had come and sing with the mic, their voice production would have been completely different. So we need to rework all those things considering today's circumstances and requirements too.
General question. Every time we have an artist trying to do the audio mic testing tuning, we always have a problem with the monitors. Is it something you can suggest how we can avoid or how we can overcome?
Right.
Is it going to be useful not only for all concerts?
Right. So using monitors, I think, is something only Indian musicians do. I don't think Western musicians even keep a monitor. So the thing is, the moment you keep a monitor there's feedback on this thing. And also one more thing, the halls in which we're singing, they are not designed for this particular music. So we need a different kind of sound. We need monitors when we are unable or untrained to sing without monitors. So unless I hear what I'm singing, I'm unable to go ahead. I don't know where the sound is or what is going on, which was happening like in the beginning of the concert, as you all saw today. But the problem is everywhere. Like every single place we go, we have issues with monitors and issues with humming and booming. That's happening all the time. Couple of things that I think could help is, one, we could have sound tests really in advance. If we do a sound test in the morning, it sometimes takes an hour or an hour and a half to figure out where to place things, where to keep our mics. So the thing is, right now we gave ourselves about like an hour before the concert, and then like when things get a little delayed, then we need to start and we hurry things up, and those kinds of things are not ideal for sound. We should ideally do sound like in the morning, get everything set, leave the setting as it is, come and sit down for the concert in the evening. That would be a good way to handle this, considering that halls are made for throwing sound. Like the sound will bounce back. That's how music halls are made in the West. In temple halls, that's a completely different story. There is no acoustical help at all from the hall. So anyway, we're going to have issues with sound. So at least when we have a good hall, we can come and work on the sound a little in advance so we can figure things out better.
If I may add that.
Please, mic at Kongo.
If that's not practical, one of the things that you could do is right now it's settled down, right? Right now the feedback was okay and it was all okay. Take a picture of where things are right now, okay, and mark. So next time you come, you start with this setup, and that way
That's a good
it probably
idea.
will work fast.
Previous artist also said, just can you give us the setup, we take it. I think that's
No, also one more thing. See, after we do a sound check, if there is somebody coming to give a little speech, where there was a little introduction or something, that time that should remain unchanged. At times what happens is you set all the sound and then like there's a slight, a different person coming and speaking or an invocation song or something like that, and then the setting goes off. So at times, I've had this experience in another hall as well. So we spent like 2 hours setting the sound, and then the sound guy just shifted the sound and somebody came to sing an invocation, and then it was all gone.
And one other thing that's happening these days, I have seen that in the LearnQuest conference that in Boston that we have, is things are getting more and more digital. As you have more and more digital, you have sets that are computerized, right? So you set something and the system stores. When you choose that setting back, it automatically resets everything, the levels to where it was when the sound check was done. But obviously that needs more sophisticated equipment and more investment and so on and so forth. But that's the direction that probably these simpler systems will also get there in the future. So that's what is happening now.
Actually, I wish that today the problem in the initial part was due to my recorder. We figured it out later. I don't know why the output was causing a problem there, but we figured it out later. So it was not a problem with the system to be present. Thank you.
all right.
We have to.
Just I wish that they don't photograph this and then probably again do that, because I cannot see the mridangam there.
yes.
I could see Mali. Mali does not nod his head.
Okay.
And I say where from the mridangam being played.
I see.
Honestly, I feel we should start getting head mics. It does not make sense to sit with a mic like this. It's covering the whole aesthetic feel of a concert. This thing is marring. We should really have head mics or on top of the head mics or something like that, and yeah, that would be good too, but too expensive.
Please, one last question. First of all, we enjoyed the concert very much.
Thank you.
Sure, I'm not the only person, I'm sure the whole audience liked it. Also, for you left early, you also did an outstanding job. One question, I go in Cleveland, for example, I go inside a there's the cherries of the competition goes with the kids. When do you think it was a good, appropriate time they should actually turn like a professional? Like, what would be the good age to say, you know what, I'm going to go do cherries more often? Sometimes the kids.
There's that's not something to do with age. That's something to do with where you are, what level of music you're at right now. You may be, this kid is a child prodigy. There was no textbook age for him. So, yes.